if we've got this right, you've got this pipeline of demand and sort of financial value of projects that's pent up here, being met by this new wave of talent coming into sector to the point where we're all subscribed. That starts to feel like a much more tangible, much more a complete piece, I guess, where everything hopefully comes together at the same time to push the sector forward. And if we can tap back to our first story, I guess, if we can do that in a way that is more considered, makes best use of technology, and therefore we boost productivity at the same time, then it could be really exciting, couldn't it? You kind of got a perfect storm there of the work, the people to deliver it, and the systems by which they can do that in a much more sort of streamlined and sensible way. It's after an up and down couple of years for the sector, fingers crossed there's a much light at the end of the tunnel, but there's something really exciting on the horizon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Jones fixing the UK construction industry. Welcome to another edition of Construction Disrupted. I'm here with the ever-present Ryan Jones. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all, I think we were talking just before the start of the recording. We've some good stories this week. I think I moaned and then managed to turn it around over the course of last week's episode. But I've high hopes this week, dare I say. I think we've got some interesting stuff that's a little bit of silver lining sort of baked into it, which will be good. How's things with you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. The run up to the end of the year is always.
I thought you were going to say the old Christmas work. Then
I'm avoiding that for now.
Good. We'll
leave that for a Christmas episode. Oh, I've said it.
Save it for then.
Yeah. So it's the run up to the end of the year, and we're not at that time yet where people do not send me any work to do because I'm on holiday mode just yet. We're in the thick of it. So let's get into these stories because they bring the positivity themselves this week, so we don't have to dig any deeper than these three stories, I think, for a bit of positivity. Mm-hmm. And let's start with something that I don't think we've mentioned yet on the show. I'm not sure, and that's AI.
We should probably, before we dive into it, just for anyone that is unfamiliar, AI actually stands for artificial intelligence. You may start to hear some sort of some bits of this out in the press, but another AI report, I think. And an interesting one, actually. We've spoken a couple of bits, I think it was the Curry and Brown report a few weeks back, which was talking about the productivity gap more generally in construction, sort of bobbing around the 1% mark this year. This one has some positivity in that it's from the AI Institute. So I should say right off the jump that they provide training courses for the construction sector. So that's their angle. But there's some solid recommendations in the report they've done, which is AI in the built environment. It still identifies that kind of performance gap that is already starting. Interestingly, I don't know if you picked up on this, Peter, but of the kind of across the gamut of the sector, from your startups to your gargantuan multinationals, it's the middle of the pack that seem to be where the gains are being made in a minute. Their hypotheses being, obviously, we spoke about Lango Rock last week in their investment into Microsoft AI, but I guess the startups, the SMEs, obviously the smaller end of that, struggle for resource. There isn't someone naturally internally to sort of lead on AI adoption and process development projects, and so are dipping their toe in the water and trying bits, which I'll come back to in a little bit. So that's stalling things. That's just a lack of knowledge and a lack of resource to get things moving. And then with the larger companies, your sort of PLCs, etc., bureaucracy and kind of too much red tape and too much kind of overthinking of how to adopt these things. So that's an interesting thing that it seems to be the guys that are right in the middle are where that sweet spot is of not so big that you're tied up in red tape, but also not so small and there isn't a person to drive this project forward. Should we dive into the report and some of the key stats?
Yeah. I think one thing that stood out for me before we just look at any stats was this phrase that they've coined, shadow use of AI tools, which plays into what you were just saying there, in that you've got this fine balance of from an organization that might be a startup to SME to enterprise, and the balance of how much flexibility have you got, how much usage do you allow employees or anyone for that matter to use AI without policies and procedures being in place to guardrail these things. And shadow use, it sounds as murky and as dark web as you can get, really, in that people are just using it more informally to get things done, not knowing of the implications behind data and usage of data, particularly personal or private information,
Yeah.
that could end up on something as open source as ChatGPT. And I think this is where they're coming from, very much from the perspective of AI is, a lot deeper than just ChatGPT or an open source model. It's about tailoring it to your specific needs. I just wanted to kind of say that off the bat, because that's the thing that I think organizations need to be concerned about, as well as not using the actual damn thing in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, but no, for certain, I think it's a really interesting point that they've raised there. It kind of ties in a little bit with we touched on the Skills England AI preparedness report a couple of weeks back, because they, if you remember, they had a couple of kind of practical use cases for how AI may be adopted into construction supply chains. And again, I won't tar anyone else with the same bush, but my head kind of goes to the LLM. I'm sat at a desktop and I'm typing away sort of AI models, and a lot of what they were talking about were the practical uses on sites, things like drone photography, for instance, and surveying equipment, and that threw up, if you remember, some security concerns around people being visible and how that might be used and so on. So there are pockets of conversations like this happening, which I think are encouraging. The whole industry, worked in this long enough to remember when GDPR was coming in. I feel like a lot of the frameworks are in place for us to understand how data can and should be processed. But yeah, it does feel like no one's really gotten a hold of it yet from an AI point of view to be able to pull those things together. And as you rightly say, the implications for the mismanagement of that are huge potentially, aren't they? So it's not a reason not to, I should say, it's not a reason not to get involved in AI. I think, again, one of the things that's highlighted in here is the properly applied use of AI and the potential for productivity gains. I think they're talking about a potential rise in annual productivity from the sector of 2%, which would bring us in line with sort of the best performing sectors globally, from 1% to nearly 3%. So that would be massive, but I guess we're not going to get there if this is all being applied in fits and starts. And yeah, again, the foundation's in place, and having a top-down approach within organizations seems to be the way to go. And yeah, and some of the key stats that jumped out to me, there's 81% of firms with a self-described basic knowledge of AI. So back to that shadow usage element, that might be one enthusiastic person, or it might be a pilot scheme for a particular usage, as opposed to a more, I hate the word holistic, but a more kind of broad view, use case within that particular organization. Again, as we said before, this is coming from a training firm, so something of an understandable figure, but 46%, so nearly half, of respondents to the survey said they lack formal training, and then that is holding them back. So again, I think if we all know productivity gains and we want to solve the data issue, then yeah, it would be no bad thing, I think, for the sector more broadly to be formally trained in that respect. Only 20% of firms have identified processes that could be automated. So again, to your point on shadow usage, it does sound like where firms are able to claim some sort of AI usage. And again, there's examples in there of time savings on bid writing, for instance. It feels like there's AI being used for a specific, I needed to solve this problem, or I need to help me with this thing, as opposed to taking a view of what processes could we automate and how could we make things a bit more slick operationally, which feels like a huge opportunity, given how process oriented this sector is. And maybe that's where those productivity gains come from.
Yeah, anything that can be standardized in a way, administrative tasks. I don't mean manual in terms of the manual labor on site, but the more manual process driven tasks. Absolutely, like that should be a no brainer really for any industry. One thing that they did urge, which was again refreshing, and I think we've said this before. They said start with training, but yeah, that's kind of a given. It's obviously they're going to suggest that, but The second thing was set clear policies.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you're uneducated within AI, then you're going to have to go to somebody to understand those policies. So that's where I would certainly start before you even look at any tech. It's like, what do we need in place to protect ourselves, to protect our clients, to protect the industry, to protect data, and also what do we want to get out of this? You know, where are we struggling? Where are the inefficiencies? Start with your business rather than starting with AI itself. I think is
Completely.
crucial.
And I think that dovetails into, there's a couple of other recommendations in there, isn't it? But one of the big ones on that governance is making sure that this is a top-down thing. This isn't a
Mm,
throw it over to IT, give it to someone as a discrete project, and let it live in this box over here. That if you're going to maximize the investment and maximize what you get out of it, it needs to, as you say, be led from the top, an organizational thing that takes in everything that may be automated and everything that could be improved through the use of AI. So a really, really interesting report, I think. And I love it when we've seen a couple of these in recent weeks where
mm.
you can see where these could be pretty easily applied rather than it being, interesting in its own right, or the data being interesting, but then you kind of put it in a drawer and forget about it. Yeah, it does feel like there's some actionable steps off the back of this, which is no bad thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we'll have to wait till next week to see who brings out the next report in terms of AI within construction, because it seems to be the trend at the moment to bring out an AI report within the built environment.
Yeah, there's a few a week, isn't there? Again, I will say though, they're all, maybe not all, but a lot of them feel like they're pointing in the same direction, which is
Yeah,
good. We're starting to get a sort of weight of evidence quite quickly.
yeah,
Can I do a quick shameless plug as well while we're
of
here?
course, always.
So constructing excellence in the northwest. I'm on the Manchester committee. There's a massive event taking place next week as we record this. It's on the 27th of November at the People's History Museum in Manchester. Several talks from sort of various parts of the construction supply chain, but one is on AI being described as the next industrial revolution. Which, yeah, I think could be a fascinating thing. So yeah, if you haven't got tickets for that, yeah, I think there's only a few left. But yeah, anyone with an interest in this particular area, I would say get signed up and get to that, because it'll be a good one.
Nice one. Fantastic. Great stuff. Get yourself along. Lovely stuff. Okay, so let's move along ever so slightly, staying with the training and education theme. And we've covered this again, this topic in the past, but this is a slightly different stance on things, really, and shows how things can escalate quite quickly. And this is the news that colleges are having to halt construction enrolment as demand has massively increased. That some of them are max capacity right now, which is fantastic for the industry, but also not fantastic for the industry.
Yeah, no, complete. I mean, on the face of it, you would say any kind of, something we bang the drum about with it from a deconstruction point of view over the years is this idea of wanting to be oversubscribed and wanting to be something of a hot ticket. It happens in other industries, doesn't it? Where internships are, for example, are really hard to come by, or entry level positions are hard to come by, and we've not had that problem. So it's quite an unusual position to be in. But this comes off the back of yet another report from the Association of Colleges, where they've gone out to their members, and just over 200 of them, to ask, what is your current status of applications across a variety of different sectors? And construction is the one that's doing the best in terms of increase in demand and sort of demand for places, which is phenomenal. Mostly around the sort of apprenticeship side of things. But interestingly, all 8 areas of the government's industrial strategy have all seen increases. And a couple of different sort of contextual reasons offered for that. This is kind of what they call the sort of COVID intake, if you like. So kids whose learning was most heavily disrupted, they'd have been starting high school at the point of the first lockdowns and so on. So therefore, I mean, again, it's not like you didn't do well in school, so over this way. But changing attitudes towards that sort of linear GCSE A level, undergraduate route, people looking for alternatives at that level. So hopefully this isn't a blip. Hopefully this is a sustained thing rather than it is
Yeah,
that one thing. And again, with that, obviously, it's been a tough time economically, and there's a lot of talk in sort of broader media around how much value for money one gets out of bachelor's degree, and whether it's better to look at something more vocational and something that is sort of more training led. So I would suggest we're probably beneficiaries of that as well. As I should stress, when we're talking about construction courses, this largely means hands-on practical trade skills, contracting skills, etc., as opposed to roles across the supply chain more generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, we go glass half full, mate. As you say, some issues around pipeline and making sure those that want training can receive it, and ultimately there's roles for them afterwards. But 89% of colleges have seen a spike generally in applications, as we said, with that changing demography. Some by as much as 20%, which is absolutely enormous. And one of the recommendations in the report is that we need to be looking at where there's areas of kind of pockets of geographical spikes and make sure that there isn't a blanket application for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And 77% of colleges that responded to this reported a substantial increase in demand for construction courses, which is pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, and with that 77% increase in enrolments, this goes off the back of what we were talking about previously in the government's 600 million boost, and their aim to train 60,000 more tradespeople. I mean, the positive thing out of all this, oversubscription, waiting lists at colleges, but it's the diversity in the what they're actually training as well. So it's builders, it's chippies, it's sparkies, it's all those kinds of things, which it's great to see those hands-on vocations getting some spotlight, because from what I've seen, I've got friends that have transferred from more desk jobs to these kind of roles, and that can only be a positive thing, because these are really skilled areas, and God knows we need them right now within construction and for the future.
Yeah,
So
for certain. For certain.
yeah,
We've spoken, haven't we, about the sort of the big figures that the industry's been chasing for some time.
yeah.
CITB, with this 250,000 new entrants into market. We know we've got an aging profile. We know we've got people that are set to retire out in large numbers in the next couple of years. So yeah, I keep saying it. While we want to appeal to as many people as possible, and I do believe the sector has roles for as many people as we can advertise to. There needs to be a focus on these young people. So I think this is really encouraging. I was on a panel a couple of weeks back with a chap called Neil Campbell, who's the assistant principal at Wigan and Lee College, they're CTEC Centre of Excellence for Construction, and do phenomenally well for construction courses. And he was basically saying, not quite, we could just open it up and it would fill, but their demand is massive. They are properly oversubscribed on their construction courses. One of his concerns is, does the industry actually have pipeline to take all of these young people, and what happens if we keep crying out for new entrants into the sector? The young people respond to that in the way that we would like them to, in signing up for these courses and getting qualified. And then because of the nature of lack of certainty in kind of pipeline and what's coming, the casual sort of labour force that occurs more often than not in construction than perhaps does in other sectors, that there isn't, he used the phrase stickiness. There isn't a stickiness where these people enter sector and then there is an obvious kind of career path for them from there. And again, a lot of the courses we're talking about here are rightly those practical sort of trade courses. Do they take into account AI as kind of what's coming down the track, and are they being trained on that at the same time? We know we have a larger than average number of self-employed people and sort of small, normally where someone is very good at a particular trade, and that demand means that they can charge a premium. But are they taught how to run a small business and fill their tax returns and sort payroll and blah blah blah? Or am I asking too much of sort of further education colleges that are clearly already massively in demand?
Yeah, but if you're looking at it from that perspective, different people want different things in what they do for their careers. So for some, it will be, they need to know the tax, and they need to know financials, and they need to know everything about running a business. And for others, it's just like, I just want to be an electrician, and that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future they might change their mind, but if we're getting oversubscribed for various courses, then in my mind, there's a huge opportunity to transfer these people
Mm.
um, onto other courses, like you said. So it might be that they start with an AI course, and then in 6 months' time, they move to electronics, they move to engineering, they move to bricklaying, whatever it is, and then they've already got that knowledge, and then you transfer the others. So then
Mm.
you're learning a skill that can be applied to another skill, like you said, future skills and the skills we need now. And there's
Yeah.
got to be something there where you hope that all this is aligned to the future, and it's not just training for training because we need
No,
it.
I'm certain it's not. I think one of it feels like the word of the moment at the minute. Obviously, we're not going to touch on budget today. That'll be a big focus for us next week ahead of that finally happening. But certainty seems to be the big sort of watchword at the minute, and I think people are talking about it in terms of pipeline and projects. We've said
Mhm,
before the amount that's sat within the system, and we'll talk about one as part of our third story, but the volume of projects and the financial amount that's tied up there at the
mhm.
minute. There's so much pent up demand that hopefully, if we've got this right, you've got this pipeline of demand and sort of financial value of projects that's pent up here being met by this new wave of talent coming into sector to the point where we're all subscribed. That starts to feel like a much more tangible, much more a complete piece, I guess, where everything hopefully comes together at the same time to push the sector forward. And if we can tap back to our first story, I guess, if we can do that in a way that is more considered, makes best use of technology, and therefore we boost productivity at the same time, then if it could be really exciting, couldn't it? You kind of got a perfect storm there of the work, the people to deliver it, and the systems by which they can do that in a much more sort of streamlined and sensible way. It's yeah, after an up and down couple of years for the sector, fingers crossed there's a much light at the end of the tunnel, but there's something really exciting on the horizon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Jones fixing the UK construction industry. That was really good.
It's an observation. I could be way off base, but
I
yeah,
thought you were going to say it's a talent then. It's a talent.
no, yeah, quite. But no, I'd say that genuinely, I think
Yeah.
not that the sector deserves it. Sounds incredibly sort of arrogant, doesn't it? But we've said it a number of times, and not just on like the 1.5 million homes or any of that sort of stuff, but the whole economy needs construction to deliver, and it does. It just feels like the potential is there on several fronts at the minute. If only that can be realised. But let's see what next week brings, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of talent and delivering, let's move on to our final headline of this week. And yeah, we're going to Hollywood, and there's so many puns, there's so many things we could talk about here, but the story, and even construction news have kind of gone with a bit of a play on words. But Robert De Niro's waiting for BSR approval.
Which
Sentencing.
for anyone that loves a pun, that's chef's kiss out of the gate, isn't it? I was absolutely determined that I wasn't going to do any De Niro puns throughout this, but yeah, but I'm not going to beat that anyway, so I'll leave them all alone.
Yeah, I know. There's various puns around Fockers as well, isn't there? But we're not, you drop the odd Fokker in there,
Mhm.
and yeah, it gets a laugh every time. But yeah, in all seriousness, this is the story about Robert De Niro, and the the building of a 360 million pound development in Manchester, if I've got that right. It's going to be the
You absolutely
tallest residential tower outside London.
Yeah, you have 76 stories. So one of the books, I think there'll be three when fully complete. One is already up. So the name attached is Nobu,
Mhm.
the sort of high end Japanese restaurant. That's on the 76 story tower that you rightly referenced at 360 million. That'll be the name over the door, so to speak. But this is part of what will be a development of three towers once complete. There is an existing tower now at 40 stories, which is already up over the viaducts down at Castlefield for anyone that knows the area. And obviously the focus is right. It's on the celebrity names attached to it. It's on the level of investment. It's on just how big this thing will be. That the launch event looked phenomenal as well from the images that I saw. They had an 11-foot replica of their tower that's going up, which it does look impressive, I have to say. But one of the things that's kind of gone, and we'll talk about Robert De Niro's waiting in a minute, and what he might be waiting for and why. But yeah, one of the things that I found kind of buried in the media that I'd seen on this was a third tower, which will be a slightly smaller one at just the 23 stories, but 100% affordable, which I absolutely love. After all the conversations we've had in recent weeks about changes to the affordability rules in London and so on, and I appreciate where Manchester is in its kind of development arc at the minute relative to London, we're talking two very different things. But yeah, I love that. Because again, the starting price for the Nobu Tower, I think, is about $500,000 for a one-bed apartment in there, if I'm not mistaken. So, the fact that there is provision for that, and we're not kind of creating this ghettoized thing of Manchester city centre, being uber wealthy and everything else. And again, the comments in there from the council, I agree with. Great that Manchester, from a regeneration point of view, is able to attract names like it is and international names like it is, but that there's still being provision made for housing for people from the area to continue to live in the city and so on. So, that kind of slipped under the radar a little bit. But apparently Mr. De Niro is not immune to the building safety regulator. That was the big headline, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the main crux of this story, that the building safety regulator, BSR, hence the headline. It's holding up the actual construction of this residential tower, going back to what we were saying a few minutes ago about being a backlog in getting projects off the ground, particularly high-rise projects, where there's month-long delays. Months with the S on the end, long delays, not just a month. I think anyone would be delighted if it was just a month. So yes, so all these things. Hopefully, we'll get some college graduates on this build. But yeah, it's got to be a positive. It's been built on top of Grade 2 listed. Is it railway arches? I think it was. Yeah, railway viaduct.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. They're keeping that heritage, which is great to see. So it isn't just a case of bulldozering everything and building it back up again. Keeping that heritage, which obviously plays into a bit of architecture, a bit of design. So it's a really positive news story with that regulation sprinkled on top, which is just halting it ever so slightly.
And let's see what happens there. So I couldn't. I think within the stories that I'd been reading around the development, they were talking 2031 for completion. So I couldn't tell whether that kind of took into account the current delays with regulator, and that had been baked into sort of the pipeline, probably the timeline rather that they were working to. So we'll see. We touched on just the regulator had a bit of grilling a couple of weeks back, hadn't he, within the House of Lords, and was saying that I think all of the Gateway 2 delays will be pushed through by the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. So one would hope that, again, if resource is being put onto clearing the backlog, then everything else should start to move afterwards. So, we'll see. In fairness, again, I've been worked in Manchester for the better part of 20 years now. It doesn't look like anyone's slowing down anytime soon. Other things are struggling to get built. It feels like there's another new thing going up every week. So, I think Mr. De Niro is going to be just fine. I think, 2031 probably seems completely doable, doesn't it, under the circumstances?
I mean, he did joke that he'll be sticking around to see it built. I think is he 82 now? Did I read that right? I think he's 82. So yeah, I mean, good on him. He looks well for 82. To be fair, so I'm pretty sure he will.
And refreshingly honest as well. Refreshingly honest from what I hear of the sort of quotes that came out of the launch event they did and the groundbreaking event a couple of weeks back. That never been to Manchester before, don't really know the place. From what I've seen, I like, but didn't kind of lay it on thick about greatest place on earth and my second home and blah. He was pretty straight about I'm here for the development, but cool. Yeah, and if other people benefit from it and there's some good come from it, then hey ho, we don't need the rest of it, do we?
No. One thing that while reading this that stuck out to me, which I thought was really impressive, was the detail that they're going to as well. It's not just a knock it down and build it high. So these arches that I've got this fascination with arches, but these arches, they're made from around 1 million bricks, and they
Mm.
were originally hand laid, as you can imagine. Like, wow, imagine laying 1 million bricks. But Domus are gonna painstakingly repoint these bricks by hand, so to keep that authenticity. So yeah, with the college tie-in, it can't come soon enough, some of this skill and expertise, but it's great to see that preservation.
Back to the very start of the episode, mate. If we're looking for a construction disrupted Christmas do, I know exactly where I'm taking you. So yeah, easy.
Good on you. Yeah, let's sort that out. Everyone's invited, and the drinks are on Ryan.
Well, let's see about that.
Right. Okay. Let's on that bombshell. Let's wrap it up. So, what's your main takeaway for this week?
Well, I've probably gone early with mine, mate, but I think yeah, on a few different fronts, there's a lot of positivity. As I say, let's take a watching brief, and we will probably get into budget things next week. But yeah, on the skills front and the demand front, I think that is a positive. The pipeline we've spoken about for a while, that there is a lot of pent up demand there, which again, I'd like to see it realized, but the fact that it exists is positive. Yeah, it's just nice to be looking forward again, isn't it? And I think again, if there's some additional productivity gains from AI that mitigates where we're light on skill at the minute, or that just means we can get building faster. Again, let's not forget we're talking about people's homes, we're talking about the infrastructure that we all use, etc. The hospitals that we all need access to. So yeah, as much as I might focus on things that have got a pound sign in front of them, and it feels a little bit abstract and arbitrary at times. There's an important reason that we do what we do, isn't there? So yeah, I'm quite excited at the minute.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the back on that. To be fair, for my takeaway, and that's that alignment you were talking about and so eloquently put, and that's something that we haven't touched upon before, by way of looking at things in alignment and thinking, okay, these could perfect storm in a positive way come together and be a real catalyst for change in the industry, growth in the industry, and positivity, and shining a light on the built environment in a hugely positive way for all involved. Like we've said on numerous episodes, it's not just one group of stakeholders that changes this or makes this work or not work. It's a complete supply chain. It's everybody within that built environment or construction supply chain that make it work. So that's my main takeaway. It's perfect positive storm coming, it feels like.
For certain. Well, and we mentioned it several times. Today was something of a budget free zone, but the opposite next week. Again, next week's episode comes out on the day of the autumn statement, which is the 26th. So yeah, I think fair warning for those of you that are interested in the economics of the sector, you will enjoy next week, because we are going to get properly stuck into to what's being trailed and what that might mean. For those that don't enjoy economics, you've got a week off. I know my two boys watch this on YouTube on a Wednesday morning with their breakfast. So yeah, good luck, kids, because you're going to be learning a little bit about the Chancellor's plans for the sector.
You're just about to find out how much Daddy moans and groans.
Yeah. Let's see what happens next week, eh?
Nice one. Right. Okay. I look forward to it. Have a good week.
Should be all. Take care. Bye bye.